ओपन कर दो उसको ठीक से। हाँ, लाइव चैट पे ओके, चैट इसमें होगा ना?
इसमें चैट ये वेबसाइट पर और ये अपना
वाइट है क्या? ओके। A very warm good afternoon to all of you, those who are offline as well as online. Am I clearly visible, audible? Good afternoon. Yes, how are you? Good. I guess you have attended one session before. Yeah, that's what I felt, that I've seen you before. You have attended the IR session, that's correct. Okay. So today we are going to have an opening session with respect to a very crucial component of our general studies preparation, which is world history. Now, by now, I'm sure through the early sessions that you have attended, you would be knowing the syllabus of UPSC Civil Services exam pretty thoroughly. At the main stage of this examination, in history, we have a subcomponent called as world history that has been introduced. It wasn't the case many years ago, 2013, when the syllabus was overhauled. World history has been introduced, and ever since it has been a crucial part of our syllabus as such. Okay. Now, strictly going by marks or number of questions asked, it might not appear to be as important, but if you look at it at a deeper level, this really is a very crucial component. Okay. World history is connected to many other parts of our syllabus. Having a thorough understanding of world history is going to help you not only tackle that 1, 2, 3, whatever number of questions that can be asked, but it will also help you understand a lot of areas of our modern India very well. It will also build a very robust base for you with respect to international relations. IR is a very crucial subcomponent in a general studies paper too, and the base of IR is in world history. Unless you understand world history thoroughly, it's difficult to be very crystal clear with regards to international relations also. World history also indirectly helps us with the essay paper. The essay paper requires, examples across time and space. And generally speaking, what happens is we have not really done a lot of peripheral reading in our school and college years. We have not taken the effort. For most students, there are exceptions of course. For most students, they have not had the time, sometimes motivation to read, things that are not directly connected to their syllabus. World history is kind of an opportunity which will give you a kaleidoscope of what has happened with respect to humanity over the last 2.5 centuries. And therein, in that discussion of world history, you'll come across many events, characters, institutions, which will come in very handy for you for adding value to your essay also. Okay? So that's why this component of world history is an extremely crucial one and should not be taken lightly at all. And don't worry, today we'll go at great lengths to understand what all we are going to study with respects to world history. Before we start anything, we must always first have a bird's eye view, as they say in English. Okay? A bird looks at things from the top and has a bigger picture. Okay? So when you start something, may it be a new component, may it be some new subject that you are studying, you must always take the bird's eye view first before you go down and take the worm's eye view. Both the views are important, bird eye view as well as worm's eye view. Okay? But students often just rely on the worm's eye view, and that is why they are not able to see the bigger picture. You are going to be future IAS and IPS officers, and your job is going to be to see the bigger picture. Now imagine when you will be district collectors of some crucial districts across the country. At that time, you will be handling a big team, a team of experts from different areas. So you'll be having somebody from, say, the health department, civil surgeon, heading the health infrastructure or the government machinery in that district. We'll be having a chief engineer. Like that, you will have people from across different fields. Okay? They will give you the technical or their domain specific perspective. But a collector must be able to see the larger perspective based on all of these inputs. And that is very crucial. And this exam also expects you to do the same. You must be able to see the interlinkages. You must be able to see the bigger picture. So today, as we start this journey, in this very first session, we are going to take a overall bird's eye view of the syllabus for world history. How are we going to go about it? We will first see the syllabus as UPSC mentions it verbatim, and more importantly, we will exfoliate to understand what topics are included in it. Now, this is a very crucial exercise that you must be doing for all the subjects, dear students. For every subject, UPSC has given a very clear and well-defined syllabus. But that syllabus is not exhaustive as such. That syllabus within itself contains numerous topics. So with the help of your teachers, with the help of previous year's questions, you must be able to break open the syllabus, exfoliate it, and have a very clear listing out of the topics. They're not explicitly mentioned in the syllabus. Nevertheless, UPSC is known to ask questions on them. So you must have that list of topics with you as you start this journey. We're going to try to do that today. That is exfoliation. Then I'll be sharing some crucial intricacies for preparing world history. Now, although we call this world history, dear students, you must remember that we are not going to study the whole of world history. We are not going to go to Egypt and study the pharaohs ka time. We are not going to go to the Yellow River Valley civilization of China. All of that is beyond our scope. Our scope is limited to modern Europe and its interconnections with the rest of the world. That is what our focus is on. So every subject, when it comes to the civil services examination, has its own peculiarity, its own intricacy. If we don't catch that peculiarity or its intricacy, then we end up scattering ourselves. Okay? So it's very crucial before you start preparing, understand from your faculty, which we are currently doing through this series of lectures, understand the intricacy of that subject for the examination. Now, world history for a university will be very different, but for civil services, it's very specific. So we need to understand that intricacy. We shall be doing that shortly. Third thing that I'll share with you is the crucial sources from which you will be preparing this subject. Before we start out any subject, you must have a listed number of sources that you are going to prepare. In this exam, as much as importance we give to what needs to be studied, we have to give equal weightage to understand what we should avoid studying. Okay, our sources have to be very limited. Time is at a premium over here. Human brain has a limited capacity as to how much it can absorb. So a smart strategy is to know very clearly what are the most important sources and stick only to those sources. Don't go beyond that. Okay? Don't add unnecessary burden to yourself. Travel light in this journey. Instead of reading 10 different sources, it is much better to read one source 10 times. Please remember this as a matter of principle. Next, we'll also see briefly the kind of questions that have been asked on different topics. What is the trend line of questions, so on and so forth. Then I will share with you a framework for preparing any topic of history, not just world history, but also modern India, or for that matter, any part of history. As future administrators, you must have a defined thought process, how you approach different things. For that, you will have to have, your own frameworks, templates, methodologies of preparing different topics. And here today, I'll be sharing with you this 9C framework, which will help you to wrap your head around any topic. These 9 C's are the structures that you must follow when you are studying any topic of history, not just world history, and we'll see that shortly. And then we'll briefly start with the first topic of world history, that is Industrial Revolution. Okay, so in brief, this is the agenda for today. This is what we are going to try to discuss today. All right, let's get started then. First things first, we have to first take a note of how UPSC has defined the syllabus for this particular subcomponent. What does UPSC has to say? I would urge you to write it down simultaneously, because writing it down commits yourself to understanding it at a more deeper level. What does the syllabus say? History of the world will include events. I would urge you to write it simultaneously. History of the world will include events from 18th century. Events, that's the first pillar, from 18th century, such as, so it gives us some examples: Industrial Revolution, World Wars, redrawal of national boundaries, colonization, decolonization, so on and so forth. This is the first part of it. Secondly, it will also include not just events, but also political philosophies like communism, capitalism, socialism, etc. This exam has a premium, guys, on conceptual understanding. Conceptual understanding. The more clear you are with respect to your basic concepts, the higher the likelihood that you will crack this examination. Prelims, mains, and even at the level of interview, UPSC is known to present questions at the level of core concepts. So that is why we will have to focus on building our basic conceptuality with respect to every subject, not just world history. And in this, we'll be studying at a deeper level some philosophies like communism, capitalism, socialism, so on and so forth. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so this is briefly the syllabus as such of the exam. I hope you all are clear about this. Okay, fine. Let's go further and dive deeper into it. Once again, a quick recap. It will include what? Events from middle of the 18th century and certain key philosophies. And you will see the questions also are based on what UPSC has prioritized. Now let's dive deeper and try to understand some key intricacies that we must remember. First and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, our focus is not the whole of world history. It is going to remain limited only to what? Limited only to history of modern Europe only. Okay? And yes, along with it, its interconnectedness with the rest of the world also will be prioritized. Modern Europe, along with its interconnectedness with the rest of the world. Please remember this. Now, this should, prompt you to ask a very basic question. What is that question? The question is, we as citizens of India, as aspirants of the civil services of India, why are we expected to study the history of modern Europe and its interconnections? Why are we supposed to study their history as such? Would they be studying the history of India at length? Why are we supposed to study their history? Let me know what you think about it. Yes, good afternoon, Prasad. Good afternoon and welcome. Yes, please tell me. They had an impact on India, that's why? Through being the colonizers, or yes, that is definitely one way of looking at it. No doubt about that. But is that the only reason? Is that the only reason? Those students who are there online on YouTube or on other platforms, do give it a thought and let me know, why are we expected to study? Okay, the economic linkage, Europe, we lived in a Eurocentric world at that time. Europe was the center of gravity. All the trade, basically was concentrated via Europe. So that is one reason. Fair enough. What else? I'm looking for something more basic, more important, more crucial. Okay, that's relevant for history everywhere. We have to learn from mistakes. Okay, let me tell you, why do we need to study history of modern Europe? My dear students, the world that we live in today is run on certain basic ideas, principles, and institutions. These ideas, such as, for example, nation state, okay, for example, liberalism, secularism, okay, the institutions that we have today, all of them to a great extent have been shaped in the crucible of modern Europe's history. Like, for example, today you are wearing a jeans and t-shirt to the class, for example. If somebody tells you, why are you wearing this jeans and t-shirt? You should be wearing only traditional Indian attire. On the street, if somebody tells you this, what will be your retort? What will you say? You will say, mind your own business. Okay, you have no business to tell me what I'm supposed to wear, or for that matter, what I eat, where I go, whom I marry, what God I worship, so on and so forth. Okay? Individual right as an idea is central to the world that we live in today. And this concept of every individual having the right to live his life or her life the way he or she wants to is central to the philosophy of liberalism, which emerges in modern Europe. So something so central that we have today in our lives, which we take for granted almost, has emerged where? It has emerged in the crucible of political movements of Europe. Okay. Another example to make you understand. Today we have a body called as United Nations. Okay. This United Nations today has 193 member states. Does it not? Okay. Now we can always debate how effective it is. That's a different story. But it has 193 member states, almost everybody barring a few exceptions. Okay, they're part of this body. Now these members individually, what are they called? They're called as nation states. This very idea of nation state itself, which organizes the whole of humanity today, where has it emerged from? Where has it come from? It has come from modern Europe's, political, socio-economic, also, connected movements. Okay. So long story short, the world that we live in today is based on ideas, institutions, principles, etc., which have been derived from the history of modern Europe. And therefore, to understand our world as it exists today, we have to understand what? We have to understand modern Europe ka history. Are you clear about this? Okay? And therefore, we are focusing on it. What you said is relevant, but more important is this aspect. Okay? Number one. Number two, from an exam perspective, the good thing for us is we don't have to remember a lot of technicalities and facts for this subject. The UPSC examiner understands very well that given the breadth of the syllabus of this exam, he can't expect the nitty-gritties in world history like he would expect in, say, modern India, or for that matter, art and culture, so on and so forth. Okay? But what you definitely should be very clear and thorough about is the flow of history as such. How on this theater of time, the story of humanity is unfolding in these centuries. What are the crucial developments that lead from one to the next? How industrial revolution, for example, gave rise to Britain's neo-colonialism. Okay? Each of these ideas are linked to the other. Understanding that flow is very important. Okay? So you don't have to go into too much of depth, but necessarily you must understand the linkages between different events that are unfolding. Okay? Third intricacy that you must remember. Third intricacy is we have to be analytical in our approach. Analysis. Analysis means what? You might have used this word very often. We do analysis of something. What is analysis? It comes from the root word lysis. What is meant by lysis? Lysis means to break down something. What is meant by lysis? To break down something. Okay? Analysis or analytical framework is where we don't just look at events of history, we try to understand the causes behind them. When common people of Paris rose up against their mighty emperor, Louis XVI, it was something unimaginable just a few years ago. Common people who did not have any say, any power, any sort of military training, they rise up against whom? Against their almighty emperor. And not just rise up, they have him killed and install a republic in its place. Now, did it happen all of a sudden? No. There's a beautiful couplet in Urdu. I'm very fond of Urdu poetry, and in my lectures, once in a while, you will be, treated with some shares also. The poet says, "Waqt karta hai parvarish barso." What does he say? Waqt karta hai parvarish barso, hadisa यूं ही अचानक नहीं होता. Disaster does not happen all of a sudden. It is over the period of time that we see that factors are accumulated which lead to the disaster. Same thing is with respect to any major event. There are numerous political, economic, socio-cultural, technological factors that lead to certain developments of history. So we have to understand why a revolution is taking place in Russia, why the revolution in China is significant for the world. That why is very central. Okay? And similarly, we also have to understand what does it lead to? What are the consequences of it? When revolution takes place in China, what implication does it have for the rest of the world? What implication does it have for the then Cold War? All of this we try to understand in the consequences. So this is analytical framework. I hope you understood up to this point. Okay. As I said earlier, the good thing is we need minimal facts with regards to world history and maximum flow. Okay. Minimal facts but maximum flow. Along with this, a very crucial point is going to be reading of maps. Map reading. Maps are going to be very central. Without understanding maps, it is not possible to understand world history. In the classroom also, in my PDFs, I'll be sharing a lot of maps with you. I'll be making you to ponder over them, and it is expected that you would be having an atlas on your desk always. Okay? Make it a habit to read or refer to atlas every day. 5-10 minutes every day, you should refer or pore over some map or the other. Direct questions are asked. In prelims now, prelims is due in May. You will see this year also UPSC will ask at least 2 to 3 questions which are based on map reading. So for that, you have to make it a practice. I hope you got up to this point the intricacies of the syllabus. Chalo, now let's go to the next point, which is sources that we have to refer to. What do you study for world history? First thing is you will have to thoroughly prepare the story of civilization. The story of civilization, which is old NCERT written by Arjun Dev. Okay, story of civilization. It's available online. It's not printed right now. It's an old NCERT, but you can get it. Alternatively, there is a book also written by Arjun Dev on world history. If you refer to that as well, it will be fine. No problem with that. Okay. So this is first. Second is the class notes that will be shared with you. Okay, class notes along with the class PDFs. Okay, the discussion PDFs like you're seeing on the screen right now, you'll be getting such PDFs for each topic plus class notes. Now this will largely suffice for your preparation for world history. Okay, and again, given the weightage, it is difficult to add one more source to it. Therefore, I will not suggest that you increase your burden beyond this. But still, sometimes students have deeper interest in world history and they come and ask me, sir, which other standard reference books we can use? So for that, there are two options that you have. First is History of Modern World, Jain and Mathur. In India, we refer to books by the name of the authors. So when you go to the shop, you tell him Jain and Mathur, he'll immediately bring out the book for you. If you tell him the title, A History of the Modern World, he may look, perplexed. He'll ask you who is the author. So Jain and Mathur is one option for you. Second option is Norman Lowe, Mastering World History. Okay, this is second option. Now both have their own pros and cons. This is a complete source. Entire syllabus is covered. But the problem with this is it's too deep. Okay. Second, this book, the advantage is it has only, sufficient depth. Okay. It's interesting also, but at the same time, it does not cover the whole syllabus. Doesn't cover the full syllabus. Okay. So unfortunately, we don't have a source that will combine these two things, sufficient coverage as well as whole syllabus. Okay. But you can take a call based on this. But if you ask me, this alone will be sufficient. Class notes, class PDFs, and Arjun Dev. This will suffice. You will hardly find the time to go into more details. Okay. I hope you understood this. Yes, no, can't say? All right. So we have seen what is the syllabus as such of the examination. We have seen the sources for preparation. We have seen the intricacies of preparation. Now we'll see the 9 C's. Okay. Why did many revolutions happen only in Europe? Very good question, Utkarsha. And we are going to try to answer this in the due course of our discussion. The conditions that emerge there in Europe. For each and every single revolution, we are going to cover that. There is no small answer to it, but your question is very, very pertinent. Today, we'll try to understand why industrial revolution happens there in England at the first time. What were the conditions? So every revolution is unique. Every context is unique. And that's why we'll have to see each one of them in that specific context only. Okay. But before we go ahead, let me share, Utkarsha and others, with you the 9C framework for understanding any topic of history. Okay. What is this 9C framework? This 9C framework helps us to, figure out how do you organize your content for any topic of history. Okay. The first C in this is concepts. What is it? Concepts. Okay. Concepts are very, very important for any, subject in our civil services exam preparation. But a lot of students feel that history hardly has any concepts. That is not the case. Even a subject like history, in fact, history is one of the mother subjects of humanities. And therefore, like any other discipline, it also has its own fair share of what? Concepts. So we have to understand those concepts thoroughly. So for every topic, my first slide will always be about what is French Revolution? What is the American Revolution? What is the Industrial Revolution? You must be able to capture that succinctly in a few sentences and tell the basic concept. Okay? Each of these ideas will then be based on some further concepts. For example, don't worry by the by the terms and names. Everything I'll go into detail as we go along. You'll hear about something called as mercantilism. UPSC has asked a question also in mains on this. Now, what is mercantilism? Mercantilism is a phase in world history where nations were trying to earn maximum profit through their trade. Okay? They were trying to maximize their export and minimize their import so that they will have a favorable balance of trade. What is that called? Referred to as mercantilism. So they used to buy things cheap and sell them dear, or manufacture them cheap and sell them dear, earn profit in that process. Every nation was geared towards this idea of mercantilism in Europe. This had grave consequences for the colonies, as in case of India also. Okay, so this is one simple concept that we will study as we go along. Like that, there will be multiple concepts. So you have to first ask yourselves, what are the core concepts connected with that particular topic, and understand them thoroughly. Number one, all clear with me? Second thing is conditions. Okay, what does conditions refer to? Conditions means what were the circumstances that led to that particular development of history. If World War I is happening, where almost the whole of humanity is ranged on either side and they are fighting it out, there obviously have to be certain background conditions because of which they are happening. Everything that we as human beings do, there are some background motivators for it. Unless we understand these background motivators, we are not able to understand why we are behaving the way we are behaving. Now, we human beings as a species are naturally very evolved. We are a complex species. We have very specific motivations. Unless we understand the motivations, we are not able to understand the actions. You know, if a murder is committed and the person who is accused is brought to the police, what do the police first try to find out? They try to find out what were the motivations of that person. Why did he take that step? Because human beings will do something only when there is some context in the background. So historical events are also like that. We have to understand the background conditions of things. Okay? Are you clear about this up to this point? So first we understand what? Concepts. Second, we understand conditions. Third important aspect is characters. Characters. History is a drama that is being played on the stage of time. What is history? It's a drama that is being played, that is unfolding on the stage of time. Now, naturally, if a drama is unfolding, it has to have some characters who take that drama ahead. There will be some heroes who will take some bold action to bring about change, to bring about some progress, some development. Who are these characters in that event? Before Mahatma Gandhi came along, freedom struggle looked very different. Once Mahatma Gandhi comes onto the stage, the freedom struggle assumes a very different color. Why is that so? Because that character, that is Mahatma Gandhi, he brings certain energy, certain ideas, certain methods which change the freedom struggle. So every historical development has to be seen from the perspective of the characters also who are part of that phase. Fourth thing is characteristics. Characteristics means what? Some peculiarities, some specificities which make that event unique and different from others. I'll give a very simple example. We'll study two big revolutions which are communist revolutions. First will be the Russian Revolution of 1917. And then the second revolution will be that of the Chinese, 1949. These revolutions are 3 decades apart. Both the revolutions are based on the ideas of primarily Karl Marx. But yet, the Chinese revolution is very different from the Russian revolution in many ways. The Russian revolution was about the industrial worker primarily. Whereas in case of China, there was hardly any industrialization. China, like India, was an agrarian society. And therefore, there was a big question mark as to whether farmers will be able to relate with the ideas of Karl Marx. Now, Marx's ideas come in the context of industrial Europe. And yet, because of the bridge called as Mao Zedong, China sees a communist revolution that is similar yet different from what happened in Russia. So there are some unique characteristics of Chinese revolution that make it different from Russia. This is what we understand by characteristics. Mahatma Gandhi led 3 movements. There was the non-cooperation movement first. Then we had the civil disobedience movement. Then we had the Quit India movement. 3 of the major movements. Each of these movements led by Mahatma Gandhi. Congress is the party that is doing it. The same political leadership, same principles of Mahatma Gandhi, Satyagraha, Ahimsa, so on and so forth. Yet, each of these movements has some unique characteristics. So we have to understand that uniqueness. Okay, this is our 4th C. Concepts, conditions, characters, characteristics. Okay? So this is number 4. Number 5 is chain of events. How things develop one after another. How one thing leads to the next. Every historical event will have certain developments which will lead one thing to another. While studying world history, you will see that Hitler attacks Poland. 1st September 1939, Hitler attacks Poland and that starts the World War II. As soon as Hitler attacks, Britain and France declare war on Hitler. When Britain and France declare war on Hitler, what happens? Colonies also declare war on Germany and other friends of Germany. Okay? In India, we see the resignation of Congress ministries. You see what is happening there? One thing leading to the next. Congress resigns. Muslim League says that this is day of deliverance. Muslim League does not resign. Muslim League sees an opportunity in this. One thing is leading to another. So there will be certain events which we should know about. Very basic, but briefly we have to be aware of it. That is chain. This is our C number 5. Then comes C number 6, which is climax. What is meant by climax? Climax means what happened at the end of that period. Say for example, non-cooperation movement. What happened at the end of NCM? Mahatma Gandhi called it off. From your school times, you would remember the event called as Chauri Chaura. You remember that event? So when that violence happened, Gandhiji said that now movement is getting out of control, so we'll have to stop it. What is that? That is the climax of the movement. Or take, for example, the revolt of 1857. What happened at the end of revolt of 1857? What was the climax? Britishers were able to take back Delhi, and then one by one they were able to defeat all the Indian rebels, soldiers or civilians alike. That is the climax, immediate outcome. Okay, this is different from what is called as the consequence. What is consequence? Consequence is the long-term impact, okay, in distant future. What is happening with it? What is that called? That is called as consequence. Revolt of 1857 might have ended in failure, ostensibly, but it paved the way for a new political awakening in India. Indians realized that we cannot defeat the Britishers with arms, with swords, with pikes, and all of these things. We have to fight a political battle. Formation of Congress. When does it happen? 1885. Okay. This failure makes us understand many things. This failure gives us also inspiration. मैं अपनी झांसी नहीं दूंगी, says Maharani Lakshmibai. And when Azad Hind Fauj is created, Subhash Babu creates a Rani Jhansi regiment to inspire women. Did it not give inspiration? Okay. So these are what? Long-term consequences. Did you understand this? Okay. Then next, another subtle point is what is happening contemporarily. What is happening contemporarily? When Europeans are fighting World War II, what is happening here in India? When the Anglo-Afghan war is taking place in Afghanistan, what are the circumstances of Indian princely states? Whenever we study history, we should not become straitjacketed like this. We are just studying that particular development. We must also have broadly at the back of our mind that when Washington is leading the American Revolution, here in India, we are seeing that the East India Company is starting to fight its wars. 1765 Battle of Buxar. And there in 1770s, we are seeing what? American Revolution taking place. Okay. When Civil War happens in America, the demand for Indian cotton increases. Do you know that? 1861 to 65, there was a civil war in America. Abraham Lincoln was the president. America was the main exporter of cotton to Britain's industry, textile industry. But because of the war, USA was not able to export cotton. So where did Britain start to take cotton from? From India, particularly from Maharashtra, therein particularly from the areas of Vidarbha. You know the train line that connects, Bombay from across all of these areas, Manmad, Bhusawal, and right up to Nagpur, Gondia. The Britishers planned this so that they could exploit the cotton. Can you see that these things are connected? The Civil War led to demand for Indian cotton. When the Civil War ended, the cotton demand also fell. That created big crisis. Okay. Here, not far from Pune, there's a place called as Supa on your way to Ahmednagar, Ahilya now. Okay. There were big riots. They are called as the Deccan riots in 1870. The context of that riots is connected with these international developments. Okay. So laterally what is happening, that also we must be able to see. Consequences in future and long term. Okay. Contemporary, parallelly what is happening at that time. That is contemporary. Okay. I hope all of you are clear about all the C's that we have seen thus far. Okay. Prasad and Utkarsha, I hope these are clear to you also. Last is comparison. Comparison is where we are able to appreciate the different events of history, their similarities and differences. Okay. As I told you, there were 3 movements during Gandhiji's times. Can we compare and see how they are similar yet different? Okay. Only a person who has deeper understanding can do comparison. Like when you're studying IR, there are two regional organizations that we are part of, SARC and BIMSTEC, is it not? One is almost defunct now, and the other one is, thriving almost. Both are from the same region. But why one is a failure and why another is a success? What are the similarities and differences over here? We must be able to compare and contrast. And this is going to be a crucial skill in civil services exam for you. Okay? So these are the 9 C's that come in useful or handy for us. Can you repeat the 9 C's after me? First is what? Concept. Second is conditions. Third is characters. Fourth is characteristics. Fifth is chain. Sixth is climax. Seventh is consequence. Eighth is contemporary. And last, that is ninth, is comparison. Okay. These 9 C's help you to understand or relate any topic very thoroughly. Fine? All right. Now we shall dive a little further and start with our first primary topic of world history so that you get a taste as such regarding these topics. Okay? So that you have a taste regarding these topics. First topic that we are going to see is Industrial Revolution. Topic, yeah, whatever you call. Any word it means the same. Okay? So the first one is Industrial Revolution. Why are we studying Industrial Revolution first? You see, throughout the history of mankind, we've had several revolutions which kind of were inflection points. Okay, if this is, time and this is development. This is the story of humanity. Okay, what is an inflection point? The point from where there is a sudden upward graph in terms of our development. Okay, these points we refer to as revolutions of human history. So a very simple first idea that we come across of revolution is the discovery of fire. What did fire help us with? Fire helped us, with food. Before that, light, safety, right? So fire gave us that sense of security, so on and so forth. That's why fire was crucial. After fire, we discovered what? Wheel, agriculture, so on and so forth. Okay, but one of the very major and relatively recent inflection point in the history of mankind has been the Industrial Revolution of the mid-18th century. Now see, with respect to history, we do not have exact particular date. No, we are not waiting with our ancestors were not waiting with a red ribbon and a scissor to cut the ribbon and enter into Neolithic age. All of these things happen in a smooth transition. So Industrial Revolution as such cannot be dated to a particular date as such, but we can say a broad range. That's why mid-18th century is a convenient way of looking at Industrial Revolution. This quote of Stephen Gardiner, a scholar and authority, is relevant over here. What does he say? Industrial Revolution was another of those extraordinary jumps forward in the story of human civilization. Sudden big jump that we did. Now, for example, we are seeing the AI revolution, are we not? AI revolution. Okay, this in future is going to be a big inflection points. Okay? Earlier, these revolutions were very distant and spaced. But now what has happened is, now because of rapidness of technological development, there will be more numerous and more impactful revolutions in future. But Industrial Revolution is where all of this technology related stuff, assumes great importance. We'll see now industrial revolution. I'll just show you a couple of questions that have been asked on this topic. What are these questions? Let's see. First question: why did industrial revolution first occur in England? Can you tell me what C is connected over here? What C is connected over here? We saw 9 C's. All the students online. I want everybody to participate. There's only one student who is answering in the live chat. YouTube students also. Can you tell me? We saw the 9 C's, did we not? Okay. So this first part of the question, why did the Industrial Revolution first take place in England? What C can you relate this with? What C can you relate this with? Concept? Is it concept? Think over it. Or is it conditions? It's not a concept. Right? Is there some idea over there as such? It is not asking you what is industrial revolution. That would be a concept. Okay. What is it asking you? Why in England first? Matlab, what were the specific circumstances in England that resulted in that revolution taking place over there? It did not happen in India. India and China were, very ancient civilizations. We were more advanced. We had a lot of wealth and resources. But this revolution does not happen in India or China. It happens where, of all places? In England. So there surely must have been some conditions which led to the revolution in England. Can you see clearly the C is connected over here? Called as conditions. Okay. Let's see the next part. Discuss the quality of life of people there during the industrialization. How were the people during that time living? What was the quality of life? What C is related over here? What can we say? Yes, you were right, dear.
Yeah.
Characteristics, not character. Characteristics. Okay? So that is the second part of the question. See the next part of the question. What does it say? How does it compare with that in India at present? What C is connected here? Comparison. Can you see the C's are relevant over here? So if during preparation we have studied the stuff from that perspective, then in the exam hall, will it be easier for us to answer such questions? Absolutely, it will be. Now this is not a fluke. Take one more question on the same topic. Latecomer industrial revolution in Japan involved certain factors that were markedly different from what West had experienced. So Japan industrial revolution comes slightly later as compared to Europe or England. And there were certain factors that were different. So what is happening over here? What are they expecting of us? What C is connected over here once again? England versus Japan. Comparison. As simple as that. Okay? Are you able to differentiate and distinguish between these two? Is what the examiner is expecting. Chain will be about events. That is not relevant over here. It will help you to understand, to compare better, but question is expecting you to compare specifically. Okay? Clear about this? Okay? So start to think in a more structured manner. Let's go ahead. let us now start discussing the topic of industrial revolution. Okay? How are we going to proceed? Bird's eye view. We'll first see what is industrial revolution. We'll understand why it happened in England first. Directly UPSC has asked question on this. Why England? How did it spread to other parts of the world? England se shuru hota hai, but how did it reach to USA, to Russia, to Japan, other parts of Europe? Then something happened in India also. In the city of Mumbai, it owes its importance to the textile mills that came up in the then Bombay. From 1850s onwards, a lot of British, Parsis, then later other Indian communities, businessmen, they set up what? They set up textile mills. I've read in one place that there used to be 600 such textile mills in the city of Bombay. Okay? And then to work in these textile mills, people from Konkan, from Satara, and all of these places, they went there to Mumbai, basically to work there as laborers. Okay? You see that chawl culture of Mumbai. Now it is vanishing in the face of urbanization. But not so long ago, you used to have a lot of chawls, small 1 or 2 holy apartments, and one common washroom for the entire floor. That was a chawl culture of Mumbai. Okay? Why did that chawl culture emerge? Because a lot of these workers were coming to work in the factory. They need housing. So that came up. Got this idea? So how did the industrial revolution come to India and other parts of the world? We'll try to understand that. Okay? What were the consequences of this revolution? And how did it lead to colonialism and imperialism? How did it give a boost to the Britishers? You know, it was said during those times, the sun never sets on the British Empire. Have you heard of that? Okay. You know, how big was Britain's population at that time? When India had 25 crore people. We had how many? 25 crore people. Britain had less than 2 crores. Okay. And they were coming from 20,000 nautical miles away. 20,000 nautical miles away. And they are coming and controlling a subcontinent. The size of England is the size of roughly Haryana. Okay? They're coming from such a small place, so few people, from such a great distance. And you know how many white people were there in India at the peak of British power? There were just 5 lakh white people who were ruling over almost 25 crore Indians. How was it possible? How is it even possible? I'm sure you must have worried or you must have pondered about this during your school times. How did this happen? Industrial revolution gave them both the motivation as well as the power to be colonial masters. Industrial revolution gave them the ships, it gave them the machines, it gave them the modern arms and ammunitions to control people. It gave them technology like telegraph, technology like railway, which enabled them to keep control. Okay, all of this we'll try to understand. Clear about it thus far? Yes, no, can't say? Okay. Impact on colonialism and imperialism. All of you clear? Those students who are attending online, a Y in the chat box, guys. Y in the chat box. All right, let's go ahead then. Okay. Now, whenever we start a topic, we have to first ask what is that particular development. So, what is French Revolution, for example? What is American Revolution? Similarly, here we are asking what is the Industrial Revolution? So what is it? Industrial Revolution is both a period as well as a movement in history. Okay, it's a time frame as well as a movement which is bringing about a big technological change in the way we produce goods. What is it doing? A big technological change. Change in what? In the way we produce goods. Dear friends, we as the human civilization, we as the species, we constantly have the desire of a better life. We are constantly striving to make our lives more and more comfortable. And this is something that is fantastic about our species. It is responsible for all the progress that we have made. And it is also responsible for a lot of mess that we have created. This constant desire for betterment, for improvement in our quality of life. Okay, starting from weapons that we designed out of stones, to pots that we designed for storage later, to every single item of luxury or basic necessity. This was a constant endeavor to produce goods for our comfort. And all of this production of different types of goods throughout the history of humanity was happening through physical, human or animal labor. Okay? For example, if we want to produce pots, the pot was produced by whom? By the potter using his hands. Or for that matter, if clothes had to be produced, the spinning, weaving, stitching, everything was done by bare human hands. But in mid-18th century, there is a big change in this. This production of goods that we need for our comfort, for better lives, that was now handled with the help of what? New technology. Okay? This new technology enabled mass production of goods. Mass production of goods in very less time and cost. Okay? Suddenly, in a matter of few years, or just you can say at max decades, the technology shifted so rapidly that those things that used to take days and weeks and months also, those were possible on a much greater scale in very less times. Using what? Using new technology, that is factory and machines. These machines were fired using the power of coal. And this coal turned water into steam to become power for keeping the machines functional. So unlike earlier where it was totally based on either human or animal power, now we have what? Now we have coal-fired machines or engines which are using steam power. Do you understand this? Okay? This is a big change that happened during mid-18th century. And this is what is referred to as Industrial Revolution. Do you understand this? Okay? So what is Industrial Revolution? It's a period as well as movement in human history where we started to mass produce goods in factories on a greater scale or mass scale in less time and cost. Okay? New technology of production enabled this. What was this based on? This was based on the calorific value of coal used to convert water into steam, and then steam helped to run the engines of these machines that were producing. Okay? This same technology then gave a fillip or boost to improve many other allied things. It did not remain only up to production. It gave a big boost to the transport sector. We see modern means of transport and communication emerging. Canals were laid out, steamships were used, roads, what we call as Pakka roads. You've heard this term, Pakka road? Okay. This Pakka road is developed by a Scottish engineer by the name MacAdam. Okay. What do we do in Pakka road? Yeah, highway, but basically what is the system? You first have big gravels, then smaller gravels, then dust, and then after that tar, and then rolling of that hot tar. That gives you what? A all-season, hard, tough road. Developed by a Scottish engineer by the name MacAdam. Railways, 1814, the first railway ran in England. 1833, this was for coal transport. Okay. Now see, coal is very important because that gives the energy. Without that, industry cannot run. But the problem was coal was very heavy and it's very difficult to handle coal. Okay. So because of that, factories had to be located near coal mines to make it easy to transport coal. But the problem once again was that these coal mines were in, interiors or less in a habitable kind of areas. Okay. So for that reason, you needed some technology to take this coal from the mines to cities where factories could be located. So that's why a railway developed in 1814 to take coal from the mines to factories which could be located near urban areas, near ports, so on and so forth. Okay? 1833, for the first time, railway was used now to transport people. Okay? The same technology that is being used to take coal can be used to take people also. Right? So this technology again comes out of what? It comes out of industrial revolution. Okay? Initially, the industrial revolution focused only on one industry, which is that textile. Okay? It was focused only on one industry, that is textile industry. Why textile industry was the focus? Why do you think textile? It's a logical question. There are many reasons, but one common sense based reason. What can we say? Yeah? Yeah, that's what textile is for, making cloth. But why cloth is the first focus? Later on, you will have industry of different types. Chemical industry will come about, steel industry will come about. But for first 30-40 years, the focus was almost exclusively on textile. Why do you think textile? What are some of the basic necessities of human beings? We need food, right? Then roti, kapda. Food we cannot produce through industry. It is a natural process. Okay? But cloth with raw materials can be done. Okay? So if industry has to come up, the risk has to be taken. It better be done for something that has immediate market, that has a need, that has demand. So that's why textile industry is the first industry that comes up. There are other reasons also, very important ones, but primarily you have to understand this. Textile. Okay? Slowly starting from England, then it spread to other parts of Europe. England tried its best, by the way. They did not want this secret to go out. So there were restrictions. Machines could not be exported. Workers who were skilled, they were not allowed to leave the country. But nevertheless, machines and the know-how did manage to go to other parts of Europe. First, it went to Belgium, Netherlands, that area. Then France, subsequently Germany. Okay, once Germany is born, then Germany. and then later on to USA, Russia, Japan, and then finally to developing world also. In all of these places, this technology or system changed. For the first time, human society was transformed from agrarian to industrial. Okay? Primarily. Yes, agriculture will obviously remain important, but that transformation now starts from agriculture to industry. From agriculture to industry. Okay? In the wake of this revolution, everything about us changed. You see, we all carry this with us today. Do you have yours? Right? There's hardly anybody in civilized part of the world, at least, who does not carry mobile phones, and in most places these are smartphones. Can we imagine a life without it? Hardly. Originally this device was meant to be only for calling. Okay. But today what all function is it doing? Almost everything that we need. Is it not? It's a small thing that helps us to do so many things. In a matter of 3 decades, 1997-98 mobile telephony basically comes to India. In a matter of 3 decades, this has become central to our lives. It is leading to several good things. You can study on this also. There are people who studied using mobile apps and have cleared exams. They have done well in their lives. And it is also leading to a lot of frauds, addictions, a lot of negative things as well. So similarly, industrial revolution is basically a technology for producing goods, but its impact was not limited to technology alone. It had an impact on society, economy, polity, way of life of human beings changed after this revolution. Can we say that because of telecom revolution also our lives have changed? Have they not? Intensity mein variation there will be there. I'm not talking about that. But has it revolutionized our life? Okay, industrial revolution also did that. How we'll go into more detail subsequently. Did you understand the basic concepts of industrial revolution over here? Clear? Now I want you to take 30 seconds and read through these points. Note down if you've not noted down anything, but revise, understand it thoroughly. Just 30 seconds for this purpose. Yes? Can you repeat? I'm not clear. Yes, that's called as capital goods industry. True. Yes. Yeah, of course. But back then, to make machines also, they did produce, they did have capital goods industry, but uska scale will not be as much as textile, because there will be limited number of factories that will be set up. No? It's not like textile, which is consumed by every single person. Okay, and moreover, we need it several times over. So the scale of textile is at a different level as compared to anything else. Did you understand this? Okay. Chalo, let's go ahead. Read through the points. Okay. This industrial revolution within itself also sees a subsequent phase where things start to change within. What is the new change that happens in industrial revolution? Earlier I told you the focus was almost exclusively on what? Textiles. Okay? But over the period of time, as the scientific know-how enhanced, industry or factory-based production diversified into other areas as well. So new industries like steel and chemical, they come up. 1833 में the Bessemer process for making steel is invented. And with this, production of steel was now possible on industrial scale. Therefore, we'll see that 1870s onwards, steel industry, chemical industry, these will start to advance. Okay. पहले focus क्या था? What was the focus earlier? It was on textile. ठीक है? In the first phase, the focus was almost exclusively on England. Where was the revolution taking place? In England. But subsequently, other European countries and USA, later on Japan, they understood the importance of industrial revolution. And this technology then spreads to these countries also. We'll see newer countries, especially Germany. Modern Germany was born in 1870. And once it was born, this new nation was filled with energy, enthusiasm, hopes, new ambitions. And they wanted to leave their impact on, world relations, international relations, so on and so forth. And therefore, we see that Germany makes rapid industrial progress, especially in steel and chemicals. Germans were very advanced when it came to knowledge of chemistry. If you've studied chemistry, you would know that a lot of these early scientists, they were German. And that foundational knowledge of that basic science helped them to develop the chemical industry. Now, in this second phase, petroleum replaced coal. Petroleum what? Replaced coal. So earlier we had coal, which used to provide the calorific value, the heat, the energy to transform water into steam. In subsequent period, what happens? The internal combustion engine comes up. It's invented. And with that, petrol becomes the chief source. Why is petrol more convenient? Why is petroleum more important? Number one, it has much more calorific value than coal. Okay? Basically, ultimately, coal and petroleum, they provide what? They provide energy. Okay? For every single unit, we have to factor in which one has more energy. Petroleum had lot more value. One. Number two, it was more easy to handle. Okay? Coal was bulky, heavy, difficult to transport. Petroleum could be taken in tanks, it could be taken through pipelines. It made it a lot more convenient and easy. So petroleum replaces coal as the most important energy source. Electric generator and internal combustion engine now replaced what? The earlier steam engine. Earlier steam engine was now replaced. Steam engine worked on steam basically, that's why. Okay, it was a relatively, these were much more advanced in terms of their efficacy. Okay? So consequently, what do we see? This change happens in terms of the technology. So did you understand the two phases of industrial revolution? The first phase starts from mid 18th century and the second one starts from 1870s. First phase focuses on textile. Second phase, new areas come up. First phase is almost exclusively England. Second phase is many other countries. First phase is based on coal as the primary source. Second phase is based on petroleum. First phase is based on steam engine. Second phase is based on electric generator and internal combustion engine. So this is the second, phase of industrial revolution. Actually, oil as such was known to humanity from very early times. Even when you go to medieval times, in some parts of Arabia, they did know the use of oil. But its, industrial application that happens in 19th century only. As the internal combustion engine comes up, it is possible to use petroleum as a source. That was not the case earlier. Okay? So showed or discovery as such, that had been, in fact, there's an interesting story. Britain wanted to secure for itself the sources of oil. On a side note, I'm sharing this with you. Now, one way of doing this was they had to go all around the world and try to find out by drilling where oil is located, which was financially and physically impossible. So, what did they do? They brought scholars from different parts of the world and made them study all ancient medieval old texts to find out any literary references of people actually using oil for lighting purposes. And then in that referencing, they realized that in this part that they call as Middle East, there was this practice of using oil for lighting purpose. It was all very surface level thing, not a very deep drilling, of course. But they came across and they realized that potentially this region has oil reserves. And that is why Britain from then on was so keen to secure its control over the whole of Middle East, because it promised the access to oil. And you see that same story is continuing even today. Okay, oil as a resource was the reason why Venezuela's president woke up with Delta Force surrounding him. It was the same reason why, one of the reasons why Ayatollah Khamenei was assassinated recently in this war. Okay. Anyways, clear everybody up to this point? England मध्ये काय झालं? Why did it not happen in England? Okay. See, what happens is when you take a head start, okay, you have what is called as the first mover advantage. Okay. Because others do not know, you get that advantage. And that's why Britain was able to become the most important colonial power. Okay. Others were watching this, particularly Germany. Now, Germany and England, we'll see later on, they had a rivalry of sorts going on. Germany realized that if it has to compete with Britain for the hegemony of Europe, it has to be more advanced in the Industrial Revolution. Okay. The first mover after a point of time becomes complacent. But the one who's catching up, he gets one big advantage. You know what is that advantage? What England learned over decades, that was easily accessible to it over a few years for Germany to develop and imbibe. Okay. And moreover, to compete and catch up, you have to be more innovative. You have to look for different avenues. Consequently, these things happened in other places, not in England first. Germany particularly will become the leader. And that is the reason why in World War I, you see England and Germany on opposite sides. One major reason was this industrial rivalry. Germany was advancing at a breakneck speed. Germany is born when? Which year? I told you just now. 1870 it is born. And by the time this century ends, 3 decades, it is neck to neck with England in terms of industry. And that makes England very insecure. And this becomes a major cause for rivalry and consequently World War I between the two powers. Understood this? Okay? All right. Now, we have understood at the core basically what is Industrial Revolution. Shift what? Yes. That when it happens, so I just told you that once the Bessemer process was developed, steel was known. What is steel basically? By processing iron, we develop a new metal which is called as steel. Why is it better than iron? Why can't we use iron? Steel is more light. Okay, it is more strong. Okay, it lasts longer. It does not rust. Okay, many advantages. We had steel swords going back to, many centuries ago. But it was not possible to produce steel on a massive scale. The process that was there was slow, cumbersome, and not economical. But understanding the value of steel, see, whatever innovations happen today, they're based on what? They're based on trying to solve some problem. Is it not? If you solve somebody's problem, then that person is ready to pay you. Right? All innovations happen like that only. So there was this problem that steel was a better metal, but the problem was its manufacturing was way too expensive, not possible on a large scale. Okay? Therefore, scientists apply their mind on this, and out of that comes the Bessemer process, which allows mass or industrial production of steel. Okay? That is where Tata Steel, originally called as Tisco, one of the oldest companies in our country. Okay? Why in that sector? Steel is the base of the Tatas. Understood now? So that technological development enabled the massive production of steel, and therefore industry comes up. If there is no technology, then why will industry come up? If you don't have technology to produce it, then can industry come up for it? No, it cannot. You need technology first. Okay? Clear? Yes, no, can't say? Clear? Okay, Chali, let's go ahead. Okay, fine. So now we have taken the idea of what is meant by industrial revolution. We have seen the concept first. But let's now do a slightly more deeper dive and try to understand how basically we reached this particular point. To understand modern Europe, you have to understand medieval Europe. And to understand medieval Europe, you have to understand a little bit of ancient Europe also. Okay, so for that reason, very briefly, I will just give you a quick overview as to how Europe evolved through ancient medieval times, reaching the point where it sees the Industrial Revolution. Unless we see the background, we will not be able to see why Industrial Revolution is happening there. Okay, so shall we see that? Okay, what does Europe look like during ancient times? European civilization is based on two major, you can say, phases or periods. One is the Greek phase or period that happens during the before Christ era, and then there is the Roman period or phase. This is a map of Europe during the peak of Roman Empire, somewhere around 100 AD thereabout. You can see the Roman Empire was spread over a large part of Europe, Asia Minor. This is the area of Levant, and this is northern Africa. If you count, there are several countries of our modern times that were part of this empire and that was spread over 3 continents. Now, naturally, the Roman Empire had at its disposal the human and material resources of 3 different continents. Just imagine people of these different regions, their intellect, their physical power, the resources of this region. All of this naturally created a very advanced phase of humanity in Europe at that point. Romans, because of this large empire, just to make my point more clear, Shah Jahan built the Taj Mahal. It is no doubt the most exquisite, the most beautiful building in the whole world. Is it not? If you ask me, why did Shah Jahan build Taj Mahal? Most probably, if you ask it to anybody, people will say out of love for his wife. Now, every husband loves his wife. There are exceptions, but most husbands love their wife. But can every husband create a Taj Mahal for his wife? No. It has to be a powerful emperor who has the resources. Okay, who has the skilled craftsmen, the raw material, the political stability, right? All of these things go in, and then of course the brain, the inclination of Shah Jahan being personally very fond of architecture. All of this combines together to create the Taj Mahal. Same thing over here with respect to the Roman Empire. The resources of such a huge region made it a very advanced civilization. You see, all of these areas were connected through road networks. Trade and commerce was happening from one end, from Asia Minor, right up to the Atlantic coast. Science, technology, law, literature, architecture, all of these things were developing in Rome at that time. Yesterday, we had the final of T20 World Cup. It was held in which stadium? Which? Narendra Modi Stadium, Ahmedabad. Okay. One of the finest stadiums in the country for sure, and definitely one of the world's also. Romans back then during this time, 100 AD thereabout, they had colosseums, which were like stadiums. In these stadiums, 30,000 people could sit, and sit in such a manner that nobody's view was obstructed of the arena. So this requires advancement in mathematics, architecture, design, building construction, so on and so forth. This was the peak of ancient Europe during the Roman times. Clear up to this point? Okay. Aaj bhi, even to this date, if you go to Italy, there are villages where Roman roads are still functional. They still use roads made during Roman times. And in our times, we see bridges collapsing within a matter of few days and weeks. Did you see what happened in Mumbai recently? There was that flyover, and one part of that flyover of cement, you can imagine how heavy, several tons, it came crashing down on a poor auto rickshaw fellow, and it smashed him. It was so heavy that people who were gathered, they were not even able to, take it away and kind of give some relief to that poor fellow. I don't know what happened later of him, but Roman roads and even the Colosseum is there even to this date. So this was the peak of ancient Europe during Roman times. This starts to change from around 400 AD. Okay. What happens in 400 AD? Over here in this area called as Germania, Visigoths, they kept on attacking the Romans. If you watch Hollywood movies, you will see these Roman armies fighting with the so-called barbarians. Who were these barbarians? These were tribes from this area of modern-day Germany, Germania. These tribes were fierce warriors. They loved their independence. They did not want to be conquered by Rome. So when Rome expanded in that direction, they fought back. And when they fought back, the Romans were internally weakened and got divided into two parts. This part was called as the Western Roman Empire, okay? And this part came to be called as the Eastern Roman Empire. Please remember these. I'm just giving you a very top level explanation. I'm not going into greater depths, sufficient for our understanding. So peak is the Roman Empire around 100th century AD. It gets divided into two parts, Western and Eastern, because of the conflicts with the tribes there in the north. Later on, over the next 1,000 years, next 1 millennium, what happens is this Western Roman Empire gets fractured into smaller kingdoms. Okay? And the Eastern Roman Empire, that went on shrinking. So here there was fracturing, and here there was shrinking. Did you understand this? Next 1,000 years is the period of medieval Europe. Okay? These 1,000 years have been referred to as the Middle Ages or the Dark Age. What is it also called? Dark Age. where Europe, instead of progressing, Europe went backwards. Europe started to regress. Now, what were the characteristics of this age? Unlike during Roman times where there was one single emperor and a big empire, now the situation of Europe was different.
What was the time? What was the time?
What was the
That is.
Dark Age? As I told you, from 5th century onwards, you can say. 5th century onwards. Okay? This is the medieval period of Europe. All with me up to this point? Yes, no, can't say? Okay. Achha, one more development you need to know around this time. In the 3rd century AD, very important development. 3rd century AD, yeah, what is now more appropriately called as Common Era, CE. Okay. Common Era, 3rd century. There was a Roman emperor by the name Constantine. Okay. Constantine accepted Christianity. Before that, the Romans were what is called as pagans. Who are the pagans? Pagans are those who do not have any formal religion as such. They worship forces of nature. They are pagans. Constantine was the first Roman emperor who accepts Christianity. And because he accepted Christianity, what happened? Because he accepted Christianity, Christianity became very popular in Europe in a matter of few decades. Just like, in India, Ashoka accepted Buddhism after Kalinga War. And consequently, Buddhism became very popular amongst it was always there, but Ashoka's acceptance made it very popular. Similarly here, Christian, and that is the reason why you see Europe is today Christian. No, it's not religion. It is like before religion, the idea that is referred to as pagan, where you worship what? Forces of nature, fire. Okay, so there are gods like, for example, there's a god called as Zeus. Okay, now, Zeus is god of lightning, rain, whatnot. These kind of ideas. These are pagan beliefs. Okay. So 3rd century AD onwards, this gets transformed. Slowly, steadily, this aspect of religion became central to the European way of life, and it got controlled by an institution called as the church. To be more precise, it was referred to as the Roman Catholic Church. This Roman Catholic Church became the custodian of religion. Okay? And this Roman Catholic Church was headed by a authority called as the Pope. Authority called as the Pope. Now, over the whole of Europe, now you saw the domination of this institution called as the Church and the Pope. Are you clear about this now? Yes, no, can't say? Can you see the flow of history? We had the Roman Empire with all its achievements. Constantine becomes Christian in 3rd century. 4th century, what do we see? Roman Empire is weakened. It gets split into two parts, Western and Eastern. Western Roman Empire starts to fracture, whereas Eastern Roman Empire, it starts to shrink. Okay? In the process, the political authority becomes weak and the religious authority becomes strong. Dharma Satta becomes powerful. Okay? This Dharma Satta was concentrated in the Roman Catholic Church, which was headed by whom? Headed by the Pope. All the kings were dependent on the Pope because Pope gave legitimacy to the ruler. Pope crowned him, and only then people accepted. You see, like it happens in our times also. Before election, politicians go and visit different babas. They touch their feet, they make promises to their, cults. Why is that done? Because those Babas then give legitimacy to those politicians. Does it not happen even in our times? Okay. Dharma Satta and Rajasatta. Okay. Secular power, political power, and religious power. All of these feed into one another. Okay. So kings became weak. When kings became weak, a new intermediary structure emerged between the ruler and the ruled. So you have a ruler at the top. Okay. Parallelly over here you have the church, and here are the subjects, Praja. Between this ruler, because the ruler is weak, what happens is, between these two emerges a layer of what is called as the feudal lords. Okay. Who are these feudal lords? These feudal lords were technically under the ruler based on what are called as feuds or land assignments. These are important terms. Land assignments. The ruler in his kingdom appointed some people who would carry out certain functions on his behalf. Okay? So there's a ruler at the top, subjects at the bottom. Now the ruler is not able to control the entire area. So what does he do? He divides his area into different parts and appoints feudal lords to discharge some of the functions that he is supposed to do. For example, these feudal lords were providing law and order in those areas. Chori dakati nahi honi chahiye. Okay, there has to be peace, no rioting, etc. Law and order will be done. Basic justice. This will be given by whom? By the feudal lord. Okay. These functions were discharged by feudal lords. Now, what did the king get in return? The king got taxes collected from the people via the feudal lord. So these feudal lords, they collected taxes from the subjects, kept their share, and handed over the rest to the ruler. Okay? So they are also earning in the process, and they are discharging some important responsibilities for the state. Like in India, you know, we had these Thakur Sahabs. Okay, you might have seen good old Hindi movies. Okay? These are all feudal elements. Below the ruler, they discharge certain functions. Did you understand this at a core, very simple, basic level? Yes, no, can't say? Okay. So they collect taxes, keep their share, and give the rest to the king. Second thing, so apart from, number one thing is tax collection they will do. Number two, law and order plus justice in their area they will provide. Two. Number three, they will also maintain troops, soldiers. Okay. From the money that they are getting from taxation, they are going to provide troops also. Ab ye troops, why do you need these troops? If you want to get taxes from people, do people pay taxes readily? No, you have to have some force. If you don't pay tax, then the state can punish you. So for that reason, you need force. So these troops were required for that, one. And number two, whenever the king, I'll again have this over here. You have king at the top, you have the feudal lord in middle, and then you have the subjects, or you can also call them as peasants. Okay. Whenever the king goes and fights a war with another king, these feudal lords will come to the service of the king with their troops. Okay. So initially this was a simple, easy and convenient system to operate. But over the period of time, the feudal lords became very powerful and the king became extremely weak. Clear, everybody? Up to this point? Feudal lords started to become powerful. Okay? This office became hereditary. They appointed their own sons in their place. You have that, favoritism, nepotism, all of that even in our times. So that nepotism, feudal lord, that institution became hereditary. Slowly the king became weak. Okay? Now where did the feudal lords live? They lived in the rural areas. If you see again the old Hindi movies, where does Thakur Sahab live? He lives in the Haveli, right? In the rural area. He's not living in a modern city. Why does he have to live in the rural area? Why in that Haveli? Yes, because he has to extract revenue from the peasants. He has to take taxes from there. So he'll always be there in the Haveli in rural area. Okay. Over the period of time, these feudal lords started to build castles. You might have seen that in movies. In Hindi, Marathi, what we call as Gadhi. These castles were built on hilly areas so that it could be defended also very easily. These castles were stocked with food, water and everything. So even if the king wanted to teach a lesson to his feudal lord, he could not do that because the feudal lord would go in the castle and lock himself up. He has food, water, everything supplied. He has his Hariya Shankar Bhola peasants serving him in the castle, and therefore the king is not able to do anything with the feudal lord. Okay, so slowly the power gravitates towards the feudal lords. Now, since power is with the feudal lords and feudal lord is in the rural area, what happens? Cities start to decline. What happens because of that? The cities start to decline. When cities start to decline, what is going to happen? Trade and commerce, it starts to go down. Trade and commerce reduces. And when trade and commerce reduces, economy becomes primarily a rural economy. You see the times of Roman Empire when the coast of Atlantic was connected with Asia Minor. You had trade and commerce, road networks going on. As compared to that, the Dark Ages have rural localized economy. No cities, no trade and commerce, no people traveling from one place to another. Naturally, all of this resulted in a backward society with backward agriculture. No scientific development, no exchange of knowledge and ideas. Everything becomes ruralized and backward. Clear, everyone? Those students who are attending online, is it clear? What is meant by revolution? Chaudhary asked. Chaudhary, revolution means a sudden big change. Okay? What we call in Hindi as Kranti. Okay? A sudden big change is what we mean by revolution. Clear? Ruralized economy, backward agriculture, decay of cities. And from this backward agriculture emerged a practice in medieval times which is called as serfdom. Why backwardness in agriculture? Because see, people are not traveling from one place to another. There is no science and technological development that is happening. Communities are centered only around their village. So over the period of time, what will happen? That agriculture will be producing only for that community locally, no trade and commerce. Okay. So naturally, no new ideas, no new development. Okay. So agriculture, like other things, will slowly start to go backwards. When does development take place? When you have new ideas, when people are traveling, when there is science and technology, when there is questioning, critical thinking, all of that has stopped in medieval times. The church does not allow critical thinking. Don't ask questions. You just have to live by the rules laid down by the authority. So no critical thinking, no science. Naturally, all of this consequence happens. Okay? It leads to the practice of serfdom. What is meant by serfdom? Now, in agriculture, there were, to make you understand this, this is like a form of slavery itself, where people were tied to the land, जमीन से बंधे हुए थे, not with ropes, but through unimaginary ropes, you can say. They are supposed to work and serve whoever is the owner of that land. Their descendants will continue to serve whoever owns that land. They cannot leave that land and go anywhere else. अब आप समझिए इसकी जरूरत क्यों पड़ती है? Why do we need this? Focus on what I'm saying right now. Listen to me here. When there is no trade and commerce, when there is no urbanization, there is, because of this, demonetization. There is no trade and commerce happening. Suppose, see, imagine the COVID times where everybody was isolated. Just imagine if we were not, God forbid, we were not even able to buy and sell anything. What will happen? All the money that we are having in cash or in online form, that will become redundant. It loses its value because you can't buy and sell anything. That is what starts to happen here. Trade and commerce is gone, cities are gone, therefore economy starts to demonetize. When economy starts to demonetize, you want labor on your agriculture land. Okay? Now there is no money to pay. Out of that necessity, you want labor, but you cannot pay. Out of that necessity was born the practice of serfdom. Okay? So these were people who were forced to be tied to the land to serve the owner of that land in perpetuity. Okay? That is called the idea of serfdom. How is it different from slavery? In slavery, the slave is owned by the owner. Wherever the owner goes, the slave can be taken along with him. The slave is bought and sold. He can be sold from one city to another. You hear about a character in medieval India called as Malik Ambar. Have you heard of that character? Malik Ambar was an Abyssinian slave who came from Ethiopia and became the kingmaker in Nizam Shahi dynasty in Maharashtra. A slave comes from Ethiopia as a child slave, that too. So slaves can go from one place to another, but a serf continues to serve on that same land. The serf in perpetuity, that is his descendants also, his children also will be serfs only. They will not be free people. A slave can technically be freed. A slave can buy his freedom also. But that is not possible in case of serfdom. Did you understand these differences? All clear up to this point? Okay. So today we'll stop here. We have started our discussion of world history. We have understood what is meant by industrial revolution. We have seen the sources, syllabus, and intricacies of preparation. And we have also started with the background of Europe so that we can appreciate modern Europe more effectively. Okay. On this note, we'll call it a day for here today. In our subsequent class, you'll be informed about it for world history. We will continue our discussion from here. All right. Thank you very much, all of you.